Artificial intelligence is a fascinating field that doesn't cease to evolve and amaze us. That's why we couldn't shy away from having one season dedicated to it. We wanted to start big, and so our first episode is about generative AI, or Gen AI, which, as you may know, is a type of artificial intelligence that can create a wide variety of data, such as images, videos, audio, text, and 3D models. The topic could almost introduce itself as it's been making the headlines for the past months, and arousing a lot, we mean a lot of attention and discussions around it. To shed the light on this intriguing topic, we invited two prominent guests. Christoph Schommer, Professor of Artificial Intelligence at the University of Luxembourg, and Aida Nazari, Founder and Chief Operating Officer of LuxAI. Together, we talk about how businesses can use, or are using, generative AI to innovate and to improve communication, the concerns around the impact on the jobs and the workforce, the upcoming new developments in the field, and much more. So, without further delay, let's jump right into it.
Welcome to a new episode of Tech Talk. This is Season 8, Episode 1, and it's called the one on generative AI. Hi Armin, how are you?
I could be a bit better.
That's true, but you are so committed that even though you're sick, you're still here today with us.
Yes, so I guess the half marathon did it for me this time. You know, I thought third time's the charm, but apparently...
Also, it's your third IMG marathon.
Yes.
You are brave.
I'm not sure if I'm stupid or brave, but maybe it's a bit a mix of both.
Well, over to you.
Perfect. So thank you so much for our two lovely guests that we have today with us. We are joined by Christoph Schommer, who is an associate professor in artificial intelligence at University of Luxembourg, and Aida Nazari, who is a founder and chief operating officer of LuxAI. So let's jump right into it. Christoph, at this point, we can confidentially assume that everyone has heard about generative AI, but just in case someone is a little bit dazed by the massive amount of information and news around the topic, how would you define it in simple terms?
In simple terms. So generative AI is basically a way to produce new content based on existing data, based on a learning model, based on something that has taken place in the past. And this new content can be multimodal. It can be text, it can be pictures, it can be videos, and so on. So, it's a logical consequence of the last achievements in this AI field.
Very clear. My next question is also for you, Christoph. Generative AI has the potential to revolutionize the way that businesses approach creativity and innovation. Can you provide some examples of how companies are successfully using or have used it to generate novel ideas and products?
The technology is somehow a little bit new, but I can tell a little bit what I think that companies could do. For example, fraud detection. If we apply credit card transactions, then there are lots of potential for fraudulent activities. A generative AI basically could, for example, be creative in itself and point out different kinds of possibilities. What can we do to be fraudulent? What can be done to say, okay, we perform a fraud? These novelties, these novel ideas that possibly could come out by the application of generative AI could, on the other side, lead to some kind of detection processes. If I know that novelties exist, if I know that potentially this way can be performed, then I can react on that. So this is one example. The other one is definitely also product design and the finding of a product name. If I use ChatGPT and I say I have a new product which is yellow, which should be addressed to children, which is, let's say, very sweet, and then, let's say, these generative AI potentially could find a new name. Or even, let's say, if I am a customer and I would like to have a special clothes that should be that should fit to myself, that should have a certain color, that should fit also in 20 years. I mean, there's also very, very great potential for generative AI to produce, let's say, a solution for this. Also, for example, in job interviews or even in dating things, find me someone who fits to my interests, who has blonde hairs and whatever. I mean, in this situation, that could also be a big potential. Or even, for example, in manuals, instructive manuals. Not everyone understands what is written in standard manuals. If there's a chance to use generative AI to produce individual manuals that explains in a language that the user would like to see, I mean, that would be definitely perfect. I think there are many other things, entertainment, games, and so on, in which generative AI has a big potential.
Wow, I like the part about the dating,
Well, I liked about the manuals personally because the manuals can be very tricky.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Also, really, the thing about the AI that it could do is to help you identify the knowledge gaps that you have, and then to propose a learning path for that, which is something that today, as a learner, is something you have to discover on your own, not through a trial and error. Well, in fact, LuxAI is a great example of how a company can use generative AI, and in your case, for the good, Aida. And can you tell us a little bit more about the vision behind it?
Yes, sure. So the goal of LuxAI is to serve people with neurodevelopmental disorders, and in particular, young children with neurodevelopmental disorders. So when we are talking about such disorders, we are talking about a category of conditions that means a child is not developing as expected and not kind of achieving different developmental milestones as is expected from them. So in this case, the best way that has been identified through clinical research is to provide lots and lots of early structured interventions for these children, and they have been proven to be very effective when they are done right. However, the challenge is that there is a huge shortage of access because these interventions are delivered by professional humans that are not accessible everywhere and not accessible as required for these children. So there is a huge gap between the demand for the therapy and the availability of such therapies and interventions. So the vision of LuxAI is to use technology which is scalable, such as robotics, for example, humanoid expressive robots, to make such interventions accessible at first. And the second goal of LuxAI is to make these interventions more effective. And by more effective, what I mean is that these children have different strengths, they have different needs, they have different learning preferences and patterns. So by using data and by combining it with standard and evidence methods, we are able to generate interventions and way of introducing children to various skills that is kind of personalized and customized based on their needs as well as based on the way that they learn better. So the goal of LuxAI in general is to support these children by making the interventions more effective and also more accessible, all in all.
That's very powerful, I would say. Thank you. My next question goes to Christoph. One of the most exciting applications of generative AI is in the field of natural language processing. Can you tell us some of the ways in which businesses are harnessing these technologies to improve communication and streamline workflows?
So one idea is definitely to use generative AI, especially chatbots, as a stimulating interface. For example, we are working at the university, so my PhD student works on a chatbot who should be able to stimulate a conversation, a communication between humans. Now, a simple example, doctor-patients, these let's say, in the anamnesis, and then maybe the doctor forgets to say something. Maybe the patient does not say the truth. Maybe the patient is shy and does not say everything. In this situation, let's say, in the backbone, a chatbot that knows what's going on, that can give some hints and tips, that explains maybe in a specific terms and words, that would be very helpful. And in this way, I see definitely a big potential. But it's not only in the medical area. It can also be, for example, in a job interview, that, let's say, the applicant may have some questions, or maybe the job owner maybe should raise some additional questions or so on. Also, in this case, this stimulating chatbot could be very supportive. Just for example. So also, I mean, that's also a problem in these data-driven AI approach, is definitely ambiguity. I mean, if we know how these systems work, if, let's say, I mean, in the end, it's a statistical model, and it works with probabilities, it works with associations, and ambiguities among these terms. Not simply the term bank could lead to wrong results. It could lead to so-called hallucinations. It could lead to novelties that are not necessarily true. In this sense, let's say, things like disambiguation, things would be very interesting to investigate and to research on. And I see, nevertheless, a big potential. Also, the question of the sentiments, to find the mood of a certain person, could also be very interesting. If a person is very, let's say, sad, then, let's say, a specific answer of these chatbots should be different than if someone is very aggressive. So, and I think there is, again, lots of potential.
Definitely.
Perfect. Aida, your generative AI robots allow for a data-driven approach to support decision-making on the therapy to enhance its efficiency. Could you describe exactly how it works, and how does it disrupt the way we conceive education and therapy?
So, when it comes to applications in the area of medicine and therapy, the first point is that we have practices and methodologies that they are kind of evidence-based, meaning that they are backed with kind of like a large body of research. So the first goal is that how we can actually use these evidence-based practices and then develop interventions that only use this type of interventions and methodologies in a way that they are personalized. So this is the way that we want the therapy to be in order to make it effective and personalized based on the need of each individual. So the first goal and the idea is to be able to deliver software products that they are combining and extracting the methodologies and then customize them based on the need of each individual. And then it's the matter of the data driven, because the data that is collected from the interaction is telling us if an intervention is effective or not. So this data can give us a very good insight in terms of what is working, what is not working, and give us the possibility of adapting the intervention as we go. So we can make sure that continuously we are ensuring the efficacy of the interventions by collecting the data and learning from this data. And then the last thing that is extremely relevant is that because there is a lot of diversity in the community of children and students who have in special needs education, let's say, all the time, everything starts with the assessment. And again, this assessment of the children to understand their strengths and needs is often a challenging area because they are done by humans through a standardized test that they are quite time consuming. There is, again, a lot of shortage in terms of accessibility of such assessments that can open our eye on one's strengths and need and guide us through developing interventions that are important for them and critical for them. So because we are collecting data continuously, we are able to at one point generate results that can reflect someone's needs, strengths, and the pattern of learning. That this data can be really useful and open eye-opening, not only for us in terms of like developing new applications and customization and personalization, but a lot of stakeholders in the field. So imagine that, for example, like you are a decision maker, or for example, you are a parent, or you are a community that cares for the support that children are receiving. So this data can really also support these decision makers and stakeholders to be able to learn what are the areas that they can generate the biggest impact, and what are the areas that if they allocate the resources and energy, they would be able to get a better outcome for children and consequently for the society in general. So these are the areas that we are focusing on effort to make sure that the interventions are not only effective on individual level, but they are generating a better knowledge and understanding about the bigger picture, that is the education of children with special needs.
Amazing. Thank you. Back to Christoph. While generative AI offers many benefits, as we've clearly seen so far, there are also concerns about its impact on jobs and the workforce, and not only. How can businesses balance its potential benefits with the need to support and train their employees for the future, and maybe even for the present, I would say?
Yeah, so just to say that I see generative AI as a very positive development, so I have no fear. If we talk about the job market, if we talk about, let's say, the situation inside companies, I think that there is that everyone can benefit from this. I mean, if there is a new product, if the competitor offers a new system, if things are moving on, then I mean, for the training of the customer, or even the training of the employee, or if there's a new employee, I think for the training purposes, I see there a great potential to say, okay, dear ChatGPT, explain me the new product of the competitor. And then let's say, plop, let's say the employee knows more about this. So from this perspective, I think that's a good way. I also see, let's say, potential, for example, in finding strategies in communication, in convincing people. If, let's say, I am the boss and there are two employees together with me, of course, it would be good to have satisfied and employees. And if, let's say, ChatGPT offers me some kind of arguments, such that I can say, okay, look, employee number one, maybe you are more dedicated to programming, let's go this way. And employee two, you should go more for customer care. Then, I mean, that's very supportive and helpful. And I do not see it negative. Of course, generative AI, if we talk to artists and we talk to other people who are working very creatively, they have some fear, also journalists maybe. But I also see, let's say, a positive sign out of it. The big question is always how right and how correct is the output. If I use these creative systems, we need definitely someone who controls the output. We need someone who checks what is the input. Is the data really balanced? Is the data correct? And so on. I think new jobs will arise. And I think, like in the invention of a car, I mean, of course, people claim in the beginning and say, oh, no, we should not do. But in the end, everyone benefits. And I see it here in the same way. We should say, generative AI is there, and we should say, let's take it, act responsibly, use it for the social good.
That's an amazing answer. I have a follow-up question. Would you say that the benefits outweigh the potential downsides of it?
I mean, different cultures, different ways on how this is used. I think regulation should be there in a sense that there is no harm against anyone. So, I mean, if I say, let's create a bomb, then the system should say, okay, I do not explain because it harms people. So Asimov's laws should definitely be respected. And there should be a worldwide agreement on that we do not use generative AI in any sense against humans or animals. I mean, that's something where everyone should adhere to. So, but apart from that, I see, let's say, generative AI, for example, as my new friend, as an artificial friend. It's something where I can talk to. If I'm 69, if I'm 80 and there's no one at home, I have something where I can talk to. And even if it's about sports, even if it's about, let's say, other topics, there is something. And I think that's very helpful. And maybe it can also be used for resocialization of prisoners, for example. I don't know, but I see it as a good way. And of course, we have to find the right balance. That's definitely true. But again, in my opinion, it should be used for the social good. It should be supportive to the society. It should be done in a very responsible way. Maybe not at schools. They are a little bit more a father than a researcher, but in universities, it will find its place, I'm sure.
Great.
What would you say are some of the most exciting developments in generative AI technology that you see emerging in the near future?
I think that's generative AI as a part of a smart wearable. So it's something. It could be a watch. It could be, let's say, I don't know in which way. I mean, the interface must be designed. So these days we have to put types, or we have to type the words into a computer. But maybe the next generation I can speak to it, and even I can, let's say, communicate it via speech. I think a smart wearable, in a sense that I can take it with me all the time. Maybe also that this system takes care of me, that, let's say, in urgency cases, let's say I have a heart attack, that this system takes control in some way. But all in all, very responsibly. It should not be misused. It should not be something where GBTR is, let's say, how misused or so. I see it positive in this way. So a smart wearable is definitely something I see on the forefront.
What about you, Aida? And actually as well, how could businesses from other industries be impacted and benefit from these advancements?
So I find the impact of generative AI really game-changing, and I believe that it is incredibly empowering, not only on the efficacy of the individuals in the workplace, but also on the efficacy of the business as a whole. So there are, of course, many ways that such technologies can impact businesses and the way that we work. But there are some areas that I feel very tangibly that the change is coming very rapidly. And then there is a huge amount of benefit by integration of these technologies. So, for example, if you imagine that a company is focused on a specific area, such as, for example, like medicine or digital therapeutics. Often what happens is that you have people in the team that they are the field knowledge owners. So they are the expert of the domain and expert of the field, let's say for in one branch of medicine or in one branch of therapy. But in order to transform their knowledge into a product, often you need way more than these experts. You need a huge interdisciplinary team of developers, software engineers, data scientists, or, for example, like creative designers, people who can design the interface, they can design the visuals or materials or the creative that goes to the product. So it's the question of, first of all, are you able, for example, to assemble this team together? Are you have the right access to the talents and people that you need to assemble in this team? Are you as a business able to afford such a big interdisciplinary team if you have access to the right people? And then are you able to manage the communication in a very productive way between this interdisciplinary team? A lot of time, building, for example, like medical solutions or therapeutics are quite challenging because these disciplines, they are not necessarily trained to speak the same languages. So the communication is often one of the biggest barriers of developing a product that at core needs an interdisciplinary team. So when it comes to the use of generative I really feel that it is empowering for the field experts in a sense that if somebody has the knowledge of a domain, let's say in medicine, by using generative AI, they can really go beyond the level that they used to go in terms of it can help them to generate many of the necessary elements and components of designing and building and releasing a product, be it from like the visual, from like the copywriting, from the interface design, and even from like the software development perspective. It can support you to develop the code that you need for the development of the product. So I can see that it really improves the autonomy and independence of many people in the field, can give them a lot of leverage in terms of building the products and really make a difference on the business, because it can really reduce the time to market of a product as well as like the cost that is required and the cost to actually develop a solution. So this is the first thing that comes to my mind from an immediate impact perspective. And then going a little bit beyond that, a lot of companies, a lot of disciplines can benefit from using AI to interact with their customers, to serve them, to provide products that they are tailored to their needs. However, not everybody has the experience, expertise, and the resources that are required to develop such a tool from the scratch. So now we are seeing that there are generative AI tools coming to the market, and many people, many companies are able to use them really as commodity level. So they are off the shelf, you can get them, and then you can put your effort, knowledge, expertise, and ability into really customizing, tailoring, and further training these tools to be able to serve a very particular niche market. So, for example, like in our case, we are not specialized in, for example, natural language processing or communication or conversation, but we are specialized in, for example, like autism and early child development. So for us, it means that we have an off-the-shelf product that we have to tailor it, we have to kind of filter it, and we have to training for the specific purpose of supporting children. And it can be generalized to many, many domains of activity. So I can imagine that using such off the shelf and commodity products that are now available can really make many companies empowered in order to serve a niche market in a very perfect and very customized and tailored way without necessarily going through the whole effort and resources that are required to develop such technologies from the scratch. It gives us a lot of diversity of use cases in a way that is meaningful without necessarily everybody investing in developing the technologies from starting to train the models, to collect the data that is necessary to train the models, and it can really push everything forward in a very fast way.
Well, thank you both for your answers. Do we have time for an extra question, Armin?
Yes, I wanted to ask the last question to both Christoph and Aida. So, Christoph, let's start with you. What could be a science fiction movie or a novel that, according to you, is closer to the change our society will be going through in the nearest future, and why?
Yeah, for me, it's The Truman Show by Peter Weir and starring Jim Carrey. I think it's time to go out of the box and to see what's going on in the field of AI, to be ready to learn what will happening, what is currently happening, and to use, let's say, the technology. So that's my answer.
Thank you. What about you, Aida?
So to be honest, I have never been a fan of science fiction era. So this genre I have a very little exposure with. So I'm not the right person to give you an example of, for example, like a movie or a book in this era. But what I can say is that I'm really agreeing with Christoph in terms of like the positivity about the impact of these technologies. And I really feel fortunate to live in the moment, to be able to see the introduction of such technologies to the market and be able to firsthand observe what is happening next and then how they can really improve our life or completely change the way that we are living our life. So I'm really keen to watch and see what will happen next.
That's for sure. Yes.
Thank you so much for taking your time to join us today.
It was a very interesting conversation, and it's great to see the positive views on generative AI, because I think, especially in the news, we get to see a lot of the negative, and there is great potential with generative AI.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. It was really lovely to talk to you.
Thank you for the invitation.
And that's all for today. This is Tech Talk, technology made simple over a cup of coffee. Don't miss out on any future episodes by hitting subscribe. Thank you for listening, and until the next episode.